How many of you have ever, especially you guys, how many of you have ever gone looking for something? You look, and you looked in the same place three or four times, and you still couldn't find it. And then your wife came along and she found it the first time. Anybody? Oh yeah, 2 or 3 of you. Uh-huh. I don't know what that is, guys. But it's some kind of male blindness. I don't get it. I don't get it. Something about that. I've had that happen several times in my life. In fact, my wife will say to me, you want to look one more time, or do you want me to come and get it for you? Such a smart aleck. That's why we love her. Well, I want to tell you this morning that there's some people looking for Jesus. Now, some people don't know that they're looking for Jesus, but what they're looking for is everything that Jesus provides. Some of them are looking for other things, but they don't know that everything they're looking for is found in Jesus. So whether you know it or not, and you're here this morning, whether you know it or not, you're looking for what's found in Jesus. You're looking for Jesus, whether you know about it or not. And it's amazing to me how many people look and find Jesus in the weirdest kind of places. In fact, the strangest kind of places. In fact, you can go to the internet, and there's people out there who have claimed, and they've got pictures to prove it, that they found Jesus. Here, I got some of those. I got a couple of those. Here's the banana Jesus. They found Jesus in a banana. Have you seen this? It's amazing. Go to the next one. Somebody found Jesus in the rust on the wall in their bathroom. You ever seen that? And then there's the plate Jesus. You see that? They ate their dinner and Jesus showed up in their plate. That's pretty amazing, I thought. And then there's a canvas Jesus. They kind of put those colors out there, and I don't know if you can see that face. You have to stretch on that one a little bit, but there's the canvas Jesus. And the next one, there's another. The orange Jesus. He showed up in orange. Cut your orange open, and there's Jesus. In the orange. You see him? Well, Cheetos Jesus. One of my favorite ones. They found Cheetos Jesus. A bag of Cheetos, and all of those Cheetos, and there's Cheeto Jesus. And he's right there. They found him. And what's a frying pan Jesus? Fry up your eggs, you're all done. Get ready to do the dishes. Jesus shows up in the frying pan. I know that's pretty interesting. And then is there another one? Oh, frying pan Jesus was the end. Well, there's a whole bunch more. And some of them I didn't think it appropriate to share with you where they found Jesus. So I left those out. But you might want to go check that out because it is pretty interesting and funny. Isn't it amazing that people look for Jesus in all kinds of places and they think they found him, but the reality is they don't really see him. And what's the tragedy is that some of us who are looking for Jesus, he's right there, he's right in front of us, but we miss him. We don't see him. We don't see him. Now, why is that? Well, why does that happen? Here in this story in the book of Mark, we've been looking at the book of Mark, and we're going to be looking at the book of Mark for a little while. Jesus feeds thousands of people with a brown basket and a lunch, boys' lunch, fish and a couple of loaves. And when he gets all done, they have leftovers. They called for the doggy baskets. The doggy baskets, they had 12 times what they had started with a little lunch. Jesus multiplied that kind of bread in their lives. Jesus then walks on the water. He takes a wind-whipped water of eyes and he gives a deaf man ears to hear. He takes a little girl that we talked about a couple of weeks ago, and she's declared dead, but he lifts her up as if she was just taking a nap and needed to be woke up. So Mark is building up this story of all of these stories about what Jesus is doing. And Mark 7:37 puts it this way: people were overwhelmed with amazement. I think you would be too, wouldn't you? If you saw these things just happening every time you went, something amazing was taking place. He has done everything well, is what the people were saying. They were amazed. He's done everything well. And yet, the problem with the miracles were the people saw it. The disciples walking right alongside him. They're with him 24/7. They're walking right alongside him. They see all of these miracles, but they missed the point. They didn't get it. They didn't get it at all. And in Mark 8, at the halfway point of the book of Mark, there is this amazing story that Mark begins to hone in on and focus on, halfway point. And Jesus does something. He's saying, you guys don't get it. Let me ramp this up a little more. So he repeats himself again with the same kind of miracle. In chapter 6, we have the feeding of the 5,000. In chapter 8, we have the feeding of the 4,000, as if Jesus is saying, you didn't get it the first time, let me do this again. Let's see if you get it the second time. And he does a miracle again in their midst. And it's a striking, similar story. It's hard to miss. But that's the thing about miracles, isn't it? It's really hard to miss the actual miracle. You see it, you go, wow. That's amazing. How did that happen? And you look at that, but somewhere when you look at that miracle, then you have to decide something. You have to decide whether it's a coincidence. You have to decide whether it's Jesus. You have to decide whether it's nature. You have to decide whether it's God. You have to decide who is it that made this happen. Now, in the book of Mark, there were some folks who looked at Jesus' miracles and thought he was doing it by the devil, by Satan himself. They said he's got a demon. He's got a demon. That's how he's got these powers. Some others thought that he was some kind of a prophet. And here they are struggling with this. So a little bit later, as you read in the book of Mark, Jesus is walking along with the disciples and they get to supper and they sit down. And Jesus is been hanging out listening to them all day long. And he gets in their face. Jesus ever got in your face before? If you walk with him very long, he'll get in your face. The meek and mild Jesus that's so meek and mild and he wouldn't hurt a flea and he don't challenge anybody and he just accepts everybody and everything goes. That's not the Jesus of the Bible. He gets in your face. He got in the disciples' face and they're just shocked. Here's what he said to them. He says to them, why don't you guys get it? I've performed 2 miracles and you don't get it. How can you be so blind? And they look at each other like, where's this coming from? What's he talking about? Well, what'd we miss? They had no clue that there was anything to get. So here's where we start. So here's the disciples. They saw Jesus' miracle, but it doesn't even occur to them that he's performing the miracles for a purpose, for them to see something besides the miracles. He's not doing this for American Got Talent tour. He's trying to teach some lessons here. He doesn't do anything. He doesn't perform miracles just for the entertainment value. So everybody goes, wow, wasn't that cool? That isn't why Jesus performs miracles. Jesus begins to suggest that the reason that they aren't getting the miracles and they don't see the powerful pictures that he's putting on the walls of their mind, that he's posted on the Facebook of their heart and the Instagram of their mind, the reason, he says, I'll tell you what your problem is. The reason you don't see it, I'm doing all these miracles. The reason you don't get it is because you're blind. That's what he tells them. And they're going like, I'm not blind. I see all right. And we begin to see that Jesus warns them about this blindness, spiritual blindness. And he begins to talk to them about the fact that they only see a part of what he's trying to do. And they miss the rest of it. Why do they miss the rest of it? Because of their spiritual blindness. And he says to them, this issue is not about your intelligence. You're smart disciples. You're smart folks. In this church today, there's intelligent people. Some of you got your degrees in education, your training. You're smart people. There's no doubt about that. You're very, very smart. Jesus says it's not a problem with your intelligence. It's the fact that you're spiritually blind. That's your problem. Now, what does Jesus begin to do? He begins to warn them about 2 kinds of blindness. And I want you to see what Jesus says to us because we're his followers, and so he's in our face, and he's talking to us and warning us about these 2 kinds of blindness. And the first kind of blindness shows up in Mark chapter 8, beginning in verse 11, and he names them, and he has a little encounter. He gets in a boat after he performs a miracle, and he goes over to a little island place to encounter the Pharisees. And he shows up at the Pharisees. These are the religious leaders. And they are blind to what he's doing, and they're blind because of their stubbornness. They're just stubborn folks. And I want you to see what happens in this place. Notice in verse 11, the Pharisees came and began to question Jesus. So he shows up and they meet him and they start badgering him. They start poking at him. Hey, do a miracle. Show us a sign. Show us you're really Messiah. What's the deal here? We heard some great things. You're such a great Lord. You're such a great Messiah. Why don't you do something fancy? Do something good for us. Put on a big show. You need like Howard Stern says on American Got Talent. You got to ramp this up if you're going to win this competition. competition. That's the Pharisees. You got to ramp this up, Jesus, if you're going to win the competition of who's the greatest Messiah. Notice what he says. He sighed deeply and said, why does this generation ask for a miraculous sign? I tell you the truth, no sign will be given to you. And then notice the next phrase. He left. He said, you boys don't get it. You don't want to talk about it. You got a stubborn heart. You're blind. You're blinder than bats. I can't even talk to you. I give up. I'm going someplace where people want to see. I'm going someplace where somebody wants to see. I'm going someplace where somebody's willing. I'm going someplace where somebody's willing to understand what I'm trying to do here. And he gets in his boat and he leaves them stuck on their own little selfish, stubborn island. He said, Jesus wouldn't do that. He loves everybody. Let me tell you, friend, there comes a time in your life you get stubborn enough, Jesus will leave you sitting on your island until you're ready to listen to him. You can get out there in your isolated little place and he'll just leave you sitting because he hasn't got time to waste with people who don't want to get it and who are stubborn in their heart and mind and life. And so he just leaves them, the Bible says. So here are the Pharisees. Now, who are these guys? They're the religious folks. They're the experts in religion. They've got God all figured out. They've been looking for Messiah for centuries. Their grandfather and their great-great-grandfather and their great-great-great-great-great-grandfather have been talking about Messiah coming, Messiah coming, Messiah coming. For all that time, they've been looking for him, but he shows up and they don't even see him. Why? Because they want some kind of scientific, conclusive proof. I mean, they got their PhDs in religion. They've got their education. And we all know in education, you got to have evidence-based proof for the claims you're going to make. And they're saying to Jesus, we got our degrees at the University of Jerusalem, and we know that you got to have evidence. If you expect us to believe you're going to be a Messiah, then you got to do the evidence-based thing. And Jesus says to them, if God came down and did something special just for you, you'd question the evidence. I'm not playing the game. I quit. So here is Jesus, and he's looking at this. Now, it's not their skepticism. He's not asking them to be gullible. He's not asking them to be not be intellectually skeptics. Skepticism isn't their problem. There's nothing wrong with asking tough questions. There's nothing wrong with asking God some tough questions. There's nothing wrong with struggling with your faith. There's nothing wrong with saying, God, I don't get this. Show me what's going on here. I don't get this. This doesn't make sense. This isn't the way I understand it. But I'll tell you what's the problem. The problem is when you have a stubbornness in your heart that masquerades as skeptical intelligence. God don't have time for that. So here's Jesus. And he points to the disciples and he talks about these Pharisees as hard-hearted blindness that disguises itself as truth-seeking skepticism. And he says it's like yeast in bread. Now, most of us don't. My mother used to make homemade bread. We don't make that much anymore. But I used to watch as she'd cover it with a tea towel in a pan on the stove, and the yeast would begin to work, and it'd rise, and the tea towel, you come back in a couple hours, and it would be rising, and if you get to a certain place, and it goes popping in the oven. And Jesus, that was a common scene in Jesus' day in the homes, and so Jesus said, it's like the yeast. It goes in, you don't see it, it's quietly working. You watch, and you look, and you watch, and then it finally gets through the whole loaf. I'll tell you what we can relate to, it's the virus in your computer. It's a little thing that comes in on the email. It's a little thing that comes in and says, hey, your PC is running slow. We can help you. Click here, do this. You click on that. Some of you done that. And it happened. And a virus got in. And it wasn't the Trojan horse that just blew up the whole thing. It was a little thing that began to slow it down and work its way over here and worm its way over here and do something over here. And it shifted your files. And pretty soon the whole computer is contaminated. And you got to take it in and reboot and rebuild the whole thing because the virus got into the thing. And Jesus said, that's the kind of stuff that's going on with these blind Pharisees. It's a little bit of blindness, a little bit of skepticism, a little bit, I'm not sure I believe. And then you end up stubborn with Jesus standing right in front of you, the Messiah, ready to do miracles in your life, but you won't accept it because you're stubborn and you're blind. So Jesus talks about this response. They wanted it proved on their own terms. But there's a second kind of blindness in this story. Jesus notices, and this time it focuses, it comes real close to home. It's not the PhDs with the religious degrees and the higher upper elites and all the rest that got the education and want the evidence base. It's his common fisherman disciples. Watch this. They're followers of Jesus, but they're blind because they don't see all the way. They have double vision. They don't get it. They have half the story. That's right, folks. They're like you and me. They're the folks like you and me who give of our energy, who go on work and witness trips and drive 2 or 3 hours. They're the ones who are paying their tithe. They're the ones who are giving their energy. They're following Jesus. They're where He's at and they're into what He's doing. And yet they don't see the forest from the trees. Jesus is right in front of them. He's speaking directly to them. They are sleeping in the same place He sleeps. They eat in the same restaurants He's eating in. They are walking with Him just like He's right there. But they miss it. Look at verse 14. The disciples have forgotten to bring bread. They're going back across the lake after they left the Pharisees. And the Bible says that except for one loaf they had with them. And so Jesus, He's kind of thinking to Himself and He begins to kind of think out loud. And He warns them. He says, you guys watch out for the yeast of the Pharisees and that of Herod. And the disciples are going, oh, brother, he found out. We forgot to bring bread. He's going to give us grief for this. We should have bring bread. Now he's hungry and it's the Lord, and we should be furnishing him lunch, and we should have taken care of business before we left the shore. And there's no fish out here, and there's no bread. And now he's upset with us because there's no fish and no bread. And aware of their discussion, Jesus said to them, why are you talking about having no bread? Do you still not see or understand? Are your hearts still hardened? Don't you get it? Do you have eyes, but you fail to see, ears, but you fail to hear? And don't you remember when I broke the 5 loaves of the 5,000, how many basketful of pieces did you pick up? 12, they replied. And when I broke the 7 loaves of the 4,000, how many basketfuls of pieces did you pick up? And they answered, 7. And He said to them, and you still don't get it? They think He's talking about bread. He's talking about seeing with spiritual eyes. Look what He says. They multiplied bread. And here they are. They think He's talking about their forgetfulness. Now He tries again. He slows it down. Here's Jesus. Now notice how good Jesus is. He could have left them like He did the Pharisees, but He didn't catch a stubbornness in their heart. He just caught the fact they're half Christians. They won't go all the way. They're just holding out. They get in a little bit and then they quit. They don't finish the journey. So He doesn't find stubbornness. So watch Jesus. Here's what He does. He splices the video and He slows it way down. And He cuts it in half again. And He plays it real slow in front of them again. How does He do that? Well, watch this. Verse 22. They came to Bethsaida, and some people brought a blind man and begged Jesus to touch him. And He took the blind man by the hand, led him outside the village. And when He had spit on the man's eyes, put His hands on him, Jesus asked, do you see anything yet? And he looked up and said, I see people. They look like trees walking around. Once more, Jesus put His hands on the man's eyes. Real slow. You get it, guys? It's starting to get through. His eyes are open. His sight was restored. And he saw everything clearly. And Jesus sent him home saying, don't go back to the village. Did they get it? Now, why in the world did Jesus do a half a miracle? Did He lose his mojo? Maybe he lost his kryptonite. Somebody poisoned his kryptonite. Why did Jesus do the half miracle? Well, was this guy's case so bad that he had to have double surgeries back to back because they couldn't do them all at one time? Is that what's going on here? Jesus has to do surgery on him back to back? Well, maybe I was thinking about this. Maybe when Jesus was doing the magic of the miracle, maybe it was incoming and a guy ducked. Oh, you missed it. What's going on here? Why did Jesus have to do this if He's the Messiah? Why does He have to do it in 2 pieces? What did we just learn? Every miracle that Jesus ever does is for a purpose. You get it, church? Hello? Are you out there? Every time Jesus does a miracle, it's for a purpose, and that's what we miss. We see the miracle, but we miss the purpose. Jesus is not interested in being a magic worker. He's not interested in doing a magic show. He's not interested in being a miracle worker. He's not interested in being the entertainment at your party of life. He's doing miracles for a purpose. And here's this man who gets his eyes touched. Can you imagine? He's probably walked around half his life. He's probably walked around half his life and ran into trees. Boom. Oh, man, that's hard. He's probably walked over and ran into somebody. And he said, you know, trees and people, they kind of feel the same. They're kind of hard. You kind of run into them. So he's having this vision. If I ever saw this, what would a tree look like? What would a man look like? What would it look like? So Jesus touched his eyes and he gets, oh yeah, just what I thought. I see trees. Yeah, that's the trees walking around. Perception. Here's a man who gets enough of Jesus to see about halfway, but then he holds on to his perceptions. What he thinks he sees. And Jesus doesn't curse him, doesn't cuss him, doesn't get frustrated with him. He just says, oops, we need to see a little clearer. So you need to go to life skills class. Here we go. You need to get rid of your perceptions. You need to grow up here. This isn't child stuff anymore. I'm giving you some sight. I'm going to see you some things. And you're going to be responsible for your sight now. You can't play games. You can't have excuses. You can't blame it on mom and dad no more. You can't blame it on your past and your upgrowing and your poverty and all the other stuff and the fact that the rich have it and you never get a lucky break. No. I'm going to touch you so you get it clear. And so here's Jesus. And here's the center of the whole book. And Jesus begins to talk to them as Mark talks to them about this Jesus. And they're all having a discussion. Who is this guy? So Jesus gets to supper that night. I don't know whether it was the famous days of Panera Bread, but he got with his disciples that night. And they had a little conference again. And Jesus said, oh, by the way, boys, I've been doing this miracle, doing slow motion. I'm trying to help you. I'm really trying to help you see here. He says, who do people think I am? And they said, well, some of them think you're a great prophet. Some of them think you're Elijah, you're the great prophet of the past, come back to life. And some other people think you're Jeremiah, and some of the other people think you're so-and-so and so and such and such. They all looking for Messiah, but they don't see him. They see a prophet. And Jesus turns to Peter and the disciples, and he says, well, hey, boys, okay, that's a great report. Now, who do you guys say I am? And Peter gets half his sight. He gets half his, he has the aha moment. He has the eureka. Oh, this is what this is all about. Jesus, you are the Messiah. Woo, yay, Peter, you're a great guy. Man, you finally got it. Man, how long has it taken? But you finally got it. Blessed are you, Peter, Simon, because you didn't get this by yourself. It's because God revealed it to you. Woo! And everybody's shouting, and finally Jesus is saying, wow, we're getting through. We're getting through the blindness. I'm making progress with these guys. Peter blurts it out, and Jesus blesses him. But I want you to notice what happens next. In the middle of this miracle, Peter just gets about as much healing as the guy who had his eyes touched the first time. He gets enough to see Jesus as Messiah, but he doesn't get enough of Jesus to see him as leader and Lord of his life. Let me show you what I mean. Look at verse 31. Jesus said, hey, you're getting it? I'm going to share some secrets with you now. I hope you can handle this. I'm going to let you on some big stuff. I'm going to let you on some future. You want a prophecy of whether the economy is going to crash? I don't got that today, but I'm going to tell you what's going to happen to me. I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you what you're going to go through. And he says to them, he began to teach them that the Son of Man, that's Jesus, has got to suffer some things and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed, and after 3 days rise again. And he spoke plainly about this. And Peter's going, I just said you're the Messiah. You're going to what? And Peter's getting, you see the color coming up in his face. He's getting madder, man. Finally, he can't keep his mouth shut. And he speaks. He comes back here and he takes Jesus aside, and he begins to rebuke him. Now, you know I don't go around cussing, but let me tell you what the Greek says literally. The Greek says that Peter took Jesus' head and said, may God damn this plan. Over my dead body is this going to happen. And Jesus says to him, what? Hey, whoa. Where's this coming from? Satan. Get behind me, Satan. You do not have in mind the things of God, but you've got your own stinking, selfish, stubborn thinking of your own. That's where you're living, Peter, and I can't believe it. You just said I'm the Messiah, but now you won't let me be Messiah. Whoa. Can you get it? Wow. 1 minute, Peter is getting it. He sees. It's the aha moment. And the next moment, he's talking like the devil. Do you know how many Christians I know who live like that 6, 7 days out of the week? They talk about Jesus and blessing and, oh yeah, I believe in Jesus. Well, so do the demons. Demons believe in Jesus. You've done nothing over anybody. If you have, well, I believe in Jesus, I don't have to go to church. No, the demons, but the difference between you and the demons is the demons do go to church. They hang out here if they can. They'll influence you. You're not even as good as the demons. You believe, don't even go to church. Demons believe and they go to church for the wrong reasons. But here they are. And Jesus says, you've called me Messiah, and now you're talking like the devil, and you live the other days of the week for yourself. Jesus comes along and says, I want to do this in your life. No, I want to do it my way. Jesus comes along and said, I want you to see something, and I want you to put some purpose in your life, and I'm going to become your provision. No, I'll get my own provisions. I got a good job. I don't need that. Jesus says, I want to be the bread of life. I said, I don't need that. I got Hy-Vee with a helpful smile in every aisle. I don't need that. I don't need that kind of a Jesus. I want to help you get a job and move forward. I don't need that. I got the union. I don't need Jesus. I just need the union. Jesus said, I want to bless you so you can be a blessing to others. Well, you know what, Jesus, I don't need that. All I need is the right president and the right Congress to get those stinking rich guys to pay more taxes and so I could have more money and everything will be fine. I don't need your stuff, Jesus. I don't need your bread. And that's the way we live. Oh, yeah, hallelujah, praise Jesus. I believe in Jesus. I'm trading my sorrows. Oh, we hear the most beautiful thing in the world. Thank God. Monday morning. It's my way or the highway. That's where Peter was living. Notice verse 31 when Jesus says that in those moments. And so Jesus addresses this whole thing with Peter, and he diagnoses Peter's blindness. He said, you aren't seeing God's ways. You're seeing your own stinking, selfish, self-centered, stubborn ways. You want to do it your way and still be my disciple. Ain't going to work. Look what he says. As you begin to look at this, he provides for us, but we don't see it. He becomes our healing, but we won't receive our healing. Why? Because I got a clinic on every aisle. I got 2 surgeons, and I've got all the expertise. And hey, I've got Obamacare. I don't need a healer. I got my healer. I got 911 if it gets to be a real emergency. I don't need Jesus. I don't need a healer. And if you're talking about suffering, count me out, because I don't get why God allows people to suffer. Well, I'll tell you what. God doesn't want you to suffer, but there are times when He'll ask us to go into some suffering for the purpose. What's the purpose? He just told us. I'm going to go die. I'm going to go suffer so that others can make it to heaven. Salvation is always the purpose of the miracle. Always. Always. God's not obligated to do anything for you and I unless we're willing to say, Lord, if you'll do this, I will allow you to use it in my life for others and to reach, nurture, and develop seekers to become. If you're doing anything in your life that isn't pointed toward making disciples, you need to meet Jesus. Because Jesus said, everything you do, whatsoever you do, what's your job? Whatever you do, do it all in the name of Jesus for the purpose of reaching, touching, speaking to somebody who needs Jesus and who will end up in a devil's hell if you and I don't have a message for them somewhere along the way. That's why we're here. That's the purpose. Now, you think I'm kidding? You think somehow I made that up? Look at the last part of this scripture when Jesus talks to the disciples one more time, and he turns to them and he says, I think we have that on the screen here, that last verse in Mark where it talks about taking up your cross and follow me. I want you to see this. The next one. Next one. Keep going. I'm trying to wrap this up because you don't want to stay 2.5 hours. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. We'll go back there in a minute. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Maybe I didn't get it up there. Any more? Keep going. Keep going. Any more? Isn't this fun? Next. We don't want to talk about adultery yet. That's next. Nope. Nope. Oh, no, that's it. Hey, whoa, go back one. Yeah, go back one. Yeah, that's it. That's it. One before that. Is it there? Calling the crowd to join his disciples. He said, listen, don't miss this now. That's the purpose of this whole chapter. This is where our blindness gets in. Anyone who intends to come with me, underline it, has to let me lead. See it? You're not in the driver's seat. Get over. I am. Now, don't inflict suffering on yourself, but when suffering comes of no fault of your own, don't run from it. Start asking God, who needs to be reached, nurtured, and developed by this? I don't like it, but who needs to be reached and developed by my suffering? Because you won't let anything come into my life unless it's part of the purpose of reaching somebody else. Follow me, and I'll show you how. Self-help is no help at all. Well, I'll just go down to the store. I don't have to take life skills to go to a counselor. I'll just go get a book. I'll read up. I'll be fixed by Friday. No. Self-sacrifice is the way. That means you're going to have to pay something for something. You're going to have to give yourself away. You're going to have to take a risk. You're going to have to let somebody into your pain. You're going to have to let somebody into your garbage. You're going to have to let somebody in. Self-sacrifice is the way, my way, to saving yourself, your true self. And what good would it do if you get everything you want and you lose the real Lou? You forfeit your soul, as one translation says. And then it says, what could you ever trade for your soul? If any of you are embarrassed over me and the way I'm leading you, when you get around your fickle and unfocused friends, what kind of friends you got? Know that you're going to be an even greater embarrassment. The Son of Man, when he arrives on the splendor of God, his Father with his army of holy angels. Here's what Jesus is saying. He said, if you're going to follow me, you can't be a half Christian. You can't get the first thing. You can't just see me as Messiah. I'm going to be Lord. I get to lead. Well, Lord, you can do this, but I'm going to hold my head high. I'm going to make it through this thing. I'll show them. No, James says, Go to James. Somewhere I've got the scripture. Oh, here it is. What is causing the quarrels and fights among you? James 4. Don't they come from evil desires at war within you? You want what you don't have, so you scheme and even kill to get it. You're jealous of what others have because you can't get it for yourself. So you fight and wage war to take it away from them. Yet you don't have what you want because you never get around to asking God for it. And even when you do ask, you don't get it because your motives are all wrong and you want only what will give you pleasure. You adulterers, Don't you realize that friendship with the world makes you an enemy of God? I say it again, if you want to be a friend of the world, you make yourself an enemy of God. What do you think the scriptures mean when it says the Spirit of God is placed within us? It's filled with envy, but He gives us more grace. He gives us even more grace to stand against our evil desires. As the scripture says, oh, get this, God opposes the proud. Well, I'm going to get through this. I'll hold my head high. I'm holding my head high today. I'm going to make it through this by myself. Jesus said, not if I'm going to be your Lord. What's it say? It says God's against you if you act that way and talk that way. Well, I'll make it through somehow. I'll hold my head. No. Jesus says He favors the humble. You want God's favor? Humble. Verse 7. Humble yourselves before God. Resist the devil and he'll flee from you. Come close to God. Well, God's never around. No. You know why He's not close? Because you're running. Who moved? Notice what it says here. Come close to God. He'll come close to you. Wash your hands, you sinners. Purify your hearts, because you've got double vision. You've got a divided heart. You're trying to go two directions at once. You can't do that and be my disciple, Jesus said. Is Jesus your healer? Oh, yeah, Pastor. Jesus is my healer. Really? When's the last time He healed you? When's the last time you asked Him to heal you? When's the last time you allowed Him to do and follow the Scripture? Look at James 4. Are any of you suffering hardships? You should pray. And if any of you are happy, you should sing praises. Are any of you sick? What do? You call for the elders of the church to come and pray over you, anointing you with oil in the name of the Lord. And such a prayer offered in faith will heal the sick, and the Lord will make you well. And if you've committed any sins, you will be forgiven. Confess your faults. Confess your needs to each other, and pray for each other so that you can be healed. The earnest prayer of a righteous person has great power and produces wonderful results. You say, how come we don't have more healings around? I'll tell you why, church. Because we don't ask God. We don't ask God to heal us. Here's what I'm hearing from Christians these days. Well, I kind of got in this mess, so it's just the way God punished me, and I'll be the way. Hey, I got a question for you. If God wanted to heal you, would it be okay? Hello, church? Would it be okay? If God wanted to heal you of something you've suffered with for a long, long time, and He wanted to come down and actually heal you, would you let Him? That's why we're not having healing right there. And when you say, yes, Lord, man, if I could be healed, then I got another question for you. If God heals you, then what are you going to do? Well, I'm going to have more fun. Well, you may have more fun, but that's not good enough. Why are you going to be healed? Why should He heal you? Whose life's going to be touched because you got healed? Some of you want ministry, but you don't want to be healed. You see, you think you're in the boat there. You're in this little discussion. You think God's talking about your past failures and focused on your past failures. And He's trying to give you a future, and you won't take it because you see, you're blind. Some of you are trying to, you think God's talking about your money. Well, He is. He wants all of it. Not 10%. He wants all your money. But you think He's talking about your money. He's not talking just about your money. He's talking about having more money to do more mission. You missed the mission part. God wants to heal some of us, but we won't take it because, after all, that's how you are surviving in your life. You don't want to be healed because if you ever got healed, you'd have to be responsible for some, and you'd lose half of your griping stuff. You wouldn't have nothing to gripe about. You would, oh, my aches, my pain, how are you today? Well, about the same as yesterday. Jesus healed you. What would happen? And would anybody make it to heaven because you got healed? Would it be okay if Jesus wanted you to be healed so that you could get to heaven and get somebody else to heaven with you? That's what He's saying here. But see, we miss it again. The tree for the forest. We see it. We talk about half the talk, but we're what John Wesley called half Christians. We aren't interested in being whole Christians. We'd rather be crippled, blinded, deaf Christians walking around. Bless God. Could be a whole lot better. But it's just the way life is. No, it's the way life is because you won't let God be Lord. And He wants to give you some health and some direction in your life. And He summons the crowd and He says, if you're gonna follow me, you got to let me lead. Some of you aren't involved in ministry because it's not your ministry. You don't want. It's got to be your way. It's got to be your ministry with your deal, and you're in charge, and you want it the way you want it. Because you're blind. You've seen, but you haven't seen. You got about half the story. And Jesus said, that's the spiritual blindness that I'm worried about. It's not whether you got bread. It's not whether you just got money. Because if I get you to see, I'll be the bread of life to you. If I can get you to see, I'll get all your money and I can give you more because you can be trusted with it. You'll quit griping about the government. You'll quit griping about all the places that are not fair. And you'll start asking God, who knows how to play fair. He knows how to get stuff moved around where it needs to be so that you're blessed and others. Do you believe in miracles this morning? I was on an online class, and I'm closing with this. Online class. A student came on the other day, and he said, hey, any of you boys, we're studying dry old theology. One of them came on there. Oh, just thought about this. He's legally blind. Taking an online class that's all reading. He's called me every week. He's doing quite well, too. I think he's going to pull B out of the thing. He asked the students, he said, have you guys had any miracles recently? And the thread blew up. I don't have time to read them all. Here's one. Several years ago, a little girl was riding her bike and was hit by a car and partly paralyzed. X-ray showed a spinal fracture. Her church, just down the street from ours, began praying and asked other evangelicals to pray as the little girl was transferred to the University of Iowa hospitals for surgery. Her youth pastor and I, assisted living chaplains, and Roberta saw the local X-ray ourselves. But when she got to Iowa City, the surgeons could not find any evidence of any kind of break in her back. She got up and walked out. He goes on to tell how that changed their church and people got saved. That's why Jesus healed her. The other one, Christmas 2009, I was diagnosed with COPD. The pulmonologist showed me the nasty X-ray shadows and said treatment could slow it down. But we all know how COPD ends, he says. A couple of visits later, she was puzzled by a new X-ray. It was clear. 6 months later, still clear. We marveled at it before and after images, and what I cannot explain was I had resigned myself to my fate, minimized it to my wife, told no one else, even did the emergency mission to Haiti, but had not asked for recovery or cure. All I said to God, here's the key, thy will be done in my life. God says, well, it's my will. If you'll use it, if you'll take it, I'll heal you. And he did. People are getting saved because of his influence ministry. A few years ago, I was a director of a Christian daycare, wrote another one. There was a little girl I was especially close to and still am. She had asthma, had croup at one time, had to be on med breathing treatments and was sick a lot. She was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis by 2 doctors, and we thought she would not live long since most of the children die young with this. My heart broke for her and family, started praying as a team of teachers in her churches. One Sunday, I was led to be anointed for her, but I didn't do it. That means she was... the Lord, you're going to let Jesus lead? Jesus in a church just like this, service just like this, said, I want you to go to the altar so that we can anoint you for the little girl in her behalf. And she said, that's a little embarrassing, Jesus. I ain't doing that. Besides, I'm not sure how that works. So she said no to Jesus. She said next Sunday I was led again to do the same thing. Now, most of us, we wouldn't show up at church again because we're afraid Jesus might say that again. So we skipped that Sunday. She said, I went next Sunday. She was due to go to the children's hospital the very next day to set up her treatment, figure out how many meds she would need. Well, the day after her appointment, her mom came in and told us, it's all gone. And no meds will be needed. She took a few breathing treatments. That's been all. She was 2 at the time. She's now 9 and breathing well and normally. And people are being saved because of that little girl's testimony. I'm talking to somebody this morning. If you're stubborn, maybe this isn't for you. You can just live in your stubbornness. But if you're a disciple who wants to see, and you've seen about this much, Jesus is passing through this place today, and he says, if you open your eye, if you let me spit on you, you let me make a little mud, you let me touch you. Now I'm going to touch you. I'm not going to touch you so you can put it all on yourself. He said, you're asking me to touch you just so you can say, well, whoop-de-doo, wasn't that fun? But I want to touch you so that you can be a blessing to others. I want to give you a building so you can be a blessing to others. If you're just interested in getting a cheap deal from some real estate in some place because, well, that's all we got, have it your way. If you want God to give you what you want, but you want him to damn the rest of the plan where he asks you to do something you don't want to do, he's passing by your way this morning and he's saying, if you'll let me be Lord. I mean, I get the whole thing. I get all of your life. You're done. You don't get to control your addictions anymore. You don't get to control anything in your life. I'm Lord. I'm your bread. I'm your provision. I'm your money. I'm your next job. I'm your next promotion. I'm your next healer. I'm your doctor. I'm your physician. You go check that out in the science as much as you can. But don't forget, I'm the final one who gives the healing. Doctors can cut and carve and medicate, but they can't heal you. I'm the healer. And when I touch you and I ask you to do something tough and that's not fun and that hurts for a little while, I'm not doing it because I'm mad at you. I'm doing it because I want somebody else to get to heaven. And I was willing to go to the cross and suffer a little while so you could get in. Would you do the same little thing? I'm not asking you to go to a cross. I'm asking you to take up your cross. Not my cross. I'm asking you to take up your cross. Suffer a little bit. Give yourself away. Don't do it just because, well, I think I'll be a martyr today and go do something suffering so somebody will notice. No. Jesus said, I'll tell you when. Well, I'm going to go do this for Jesus. No, you're not. You're not going to do nothing for Jesus, not till he says to. Listen, church, we need to begin to see Jesus for who he is in your life. And when you do, the miracles and the blessings will start flowing, and it'll make your head swim. That's what Amos the clod farmer said. It'll make your head swim. Would you bow your heads with me this morning?